So, some time ago, a thought just popped up in my head, and I was like, I really do want to share this. So, here I am. I won't talk about that thought or that point in this video, but in order to get to that thought or point, I have to talk about something, which is the title of this video. Yeah, let's get straight into it. So, 4 possible explanations of this universe. Actually, I won't even go into details for the first one and the second one, actually, because I don't think they're even worth talking about, to be frankly honest with you. It's just not rational, in my opinion, to be honest. But I'm just going to say one thing to you, that imagine a vacuum chamber in your house. Imagine you have a vacuum chamber in your house, and is this just a hypothetical situation? Let's just assume that you have it. Now, when I say vacuum, I mean vacuum. There's nothing in it. Only vacuum. No air, no matter, no nothing. It's just vacuum. Only vacuum is a chamber. You have that, and hypothetically speaking, you are able to maintain that vacuum for as long as you want. For as long as you want. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Does the passage of time affect the internal state of that vacuum? Would the passage of time magically make something appear inside of that vacuum? I can actually, think about some people who would say, oh, well, quantum particles, oh, you don't know nothing. Well, actually, oh, you don't know anything, dude. Haven't you heard about quantum particles? You don't understand physics. Yes, I don't understand physics. I'm not here to talk about physics in the first place, actually. But this is purely just rational. Think about it. When I say nothing, I do mean nothing. You don't have to complicate things. It's not. One more thing I want to talk about is that I don't understand why things are being complicated too much. So when I said there's nothing in the vacuum, there's actually nothing in the vacuum. So, of course, the passage of time would not affect the state of the vacuum. It's not that hard to understand. So I'm neglecting the first and second points. I just wanted to say this about them. The third point, however, is the one that I really want to talk about in this video, because as far as I've seen, a lot of people actually do hold this position that the universe is eternal. Let's analyze this a bit. What I want you guys to do is think about a line in your mind, and the line is infinitely long. Now, this particular line represents the timeline of the universe. Now, one more thing, let's make an assumption that the third point is actually true. The universe is actually eternal. Let's make this assumption. Now let's analyze this assumption, that since we've made an assumption that the universe is eternal, the line that you have in your mind right now is also infinite, because the timeline of the universe would be infinite. Now I want you to think about a point on that line, any point. Now, think about the points that come before that point. Now, these points actually are responsible for that particular point to be there. The point that you thought about, the points before that particular point are actually give rise to this particular point that you thought about in your mind. Now, This might not sound like a problem, but it is actually. Because if we assume that this line or the timeline is infinite, then the particular point that you thought about would not have existed. It's as simple as that. It would not have existed because it has infinite points before it. Infinite points. So of course, this particular point that you thought about should not exist according to our assumption. Let's take another example if this one wasn't as clear. The second example I would take is of a company. Assume that this company has infinite space, an infinite number of workers, employees. Now, let's say that there's an employee and he has to complete a task. In order to start doing that task, he has to seek permission from the one who is above this employee. So basically his senior, correct? Now, this senior, in order to give permission to this person to start that task, this senior has to seek permission from his senior, right? And this goes on forever because we assume that the company is infinitely big and there are infinite number of people working in that company. And we have also assumed that there's someone always above someone. So this goes on forever. Now I want you to think deeply about this. The employee that we talked about initially, would this person ever be able to complete that task? Since this process would go on forever, the task would never be completed. It is what it is. Now, I want you to think about that task as the current moment in your life. This moment in your life is dependent on all the previous moments that have already passed. This moment would not have existed if there was infinite moments before this particular moment in your life. The fact that you are in this moment is an evidence in itself that there could not have been an infinite number of things that impact this moment. I really do hope that I could convey what I really have in my head properly. Now that we've talked about 3 points, there's one point that remains, which is that there is something external that created the universe. I've already talked about the first 3 points and why they cannot be true. It's simple. I'm not an academic genius. I'm not an expert. I'm just a random guy. And this is not something that's very hard to understand. I don't understand why things are being complicated. Of course, there are going to be people who are not going to agree. I've discarded the first 3 points. Now, the only possible reliable explanation that remains is that something external created it. If I say this to an atheist, he would, of course, this comes up a lot actually. Now they would say, oh, well, you're using the God of Gaps argument. There we go. Whatever. Actually, I can throw this back at him if you really think about it, because that atheist would say to me that, oh, you're using the God of Gaps argument. But then I would ask him that, okay, if this is not the explanation, if this is not a reliable, possible rational explanation, then what do you have? What's your explanation of this universe? All these magnificent things just it just blows your mind. What's your explanation for this? This person would most probably say, well, we don't know much about it yet, but science is going to explain it in the future. I can say to this person, well, you're doing the same thing that you accused me of doing. I would say to that person, you are using the science of gaps argument. Something that you can't explain, you're putting it onto science. Well, science is going to explain me. So, and that's why this is not a valid argument that this person would say to you that, oh, you're using the God of gaps argument. No, actually, no. This is the rational explanation, because we already talked about the first 3 points. Only this remains, and now you might be wondering, why has this person, a random person on YouTube, chosen these 4 points? Why not a 5th one? Or why not just 3? That's because anything else that you can think of would break down into these 4 points. And yes, if you do have something that could change my mind, please let me know in the comments. We'll look into it, but as of now, I would say that everything else then that you think of apart from this, apart from these 4 points, would break down into one of these 4 points. For example, if someone comes up and says, well, aliens created us, they're controlling us, they're doing this, they're doing that, well, that still breaks down into the 4 points. So yeah, if you have any thoughts or any responses to this, just let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Ponder over it.